Let's talk the cup. One more thing, like, subscribe, and share. Come on, let's talk the cup. Woo!
Hey, good evening, everybody. It's Cutler here, the Let's Talk the Cutler broadcast, the Let's Talk the Cutler virtual book club, the Let's Talk the Cutler vlog. Hey, it is the 13th of December. Oh, where has the year gone? Where has the month gone? Listen, I'm glad to still be here. I'm glad to be alive. I'm glad to be participating in this thing that's called creation. I'm glad to be a part of what is called humanity. I don't know about you, but I'm just glad to be here. I'm glad to be on this side of the grave, this side of the mound, this side of the dirt. I'm thankful for being here. I want to say thank you to all of those of you who have been with me for so long. Every time we get together on these Tuesdays and Thursdays for these 1800 seconds, it really makes my day. It's a lift for my week. It really, really is. So thank you all so much. In case somebody's stopping by for the first time and they're wondering, what is that guy talking about? What is this channel about? I just want to remind you that Let's Talk to Cutler. This channel, this YouTube channel, is about inspiration. It's about motivation. It's about taking some time to see what we can do to show up a better person, to show up better tomorrow than we did today. Doesn't mean that today was a failure or flop. It just means that we're very intentional about positioning ourselves in this space that's called better, checking to see if there's anything that we can do to make sure that we showed up better today than we did yesterday. Again, it doesn't mean that yesterday was a failure or flop, but it means that we're intentional about being the best persons that we can be. It's about making sure that we can present the best side of us, even in the worst of situations. And I want to thank you all so much for helping me to do that. Some of you have sent me text messages. You've sent me emails and saying, Cutler, thank you, thank you, thank you. But may I say thank you to you, because every time we have a conversation like this, I walk away a better person. I walk away more deliberate and more intentional about becoming better. So thank you all so much for being a part of my community of support, my community of encouragement. Again, thank you. And I want to shout out the LTTC VIPs for just a moment, those who sometimes jump into the chat room and start speaking and chit-chatting with everybody else before I can even get in there. Thank you all so much. So I want to shout them out. Annie Cutler says, get aboard, let's ride. Jet Sheely says, hello, hi, everybody. Tracy Johnson says, hey, everyone, good evening. So again, thank you to all of you. You all know I'm only here for 1800 seconds, trying to do what I can to make somebody's life better, trying to help save somebody's life like you all have helped save mine. This evening, I want to talk about something that I think we've all encountered people like this, and I want to make sure that we are not the people that we're going to talk about this evening. We're going to talk about opinionated people. We're going to talk about how to handle overly opinionated people. I have to tell you all this. I don't think I'm very opinionated because I talk so much. I talk so much for a living until I've relished the moments when I really don't have to say anything. People who know me, they know me in different veins and different venues. They probably think that I just like to talk, but I like the moments when I don't have to offer my opinion. I like the moments when I don't have to say anything. I like the moments when I can just really be quiet. Sometimes people pull me out of my shell and they'll ask me, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? I'll offer my opinion when I'm asked, or sometimes when I think it's valued or needed. But more often than not, I'm the kind of person who prefers to just keep my opinion to myself. So before we start the conversation, I want to know, are you more of the kind of person who offers your opinion, or are you more of the silent type? I'm just curious. Do you tend to offer your opinion, or do you tend to withhold your opinion? So you could either put in the chat, you offer or you withhold. I'm just sort of curious. I want to just do that as a survey to see what you all, how you handle your opinion, because we're going to talk about how to handle overly opinionated people. So the survey, as we start, I want you all to put it in the chat and let me know if you tend to offer your opinion or if you tend to hold your opinion. Let me know which one seems to characterize you. Let's say I'm an opinionated person. I'm learning to shut my mouth if someone seems uninterested. Just sometimes you have to realize that what you say is valuable. And if people don't receive what you say as valuable, then you have to temper the moments and learn the times when when it's important for you to hold what is of value so that you are not, as it were, casting your pearls before swine. A lot of times you've given a lot of thought to what you have to say. You've put a lot of processing, you've put a lot of research into what you have to say, and you want to make sure that what you have to say is received in the way that you offer it, especially when you think it is something of value. And if you don't think it's going to be received as such, then you find it important to just hold on to it. Uh, let's see. So let me just read through the comments. So McDina, I just read yours. I'm an opinionated person. I'm learning to shut my mouth if someone seems uninterested. McDina says, I tend to offer my opinion. Paula did a little bit of both. Jet, offer. Tracy, if it is a close friend or relative, I can be opinionated. Sonia, offer. So continue as you're coming into the chat room. I really want to know if you're the type of person who holds your opinion or tends to offer your opinion. And why is that important? A lot of us have things to say about so many things, but I'm just curious if it's not you, or if you know, listen, if you know opinionated people, do me a favor, go and tell them, come on, let's talk to Cutler. And if they don't, then just make sure you send them the link for the replay so they can catch this. All right. But let's talk about how to handle overly opinionated people, because I'm sure you probably know somebody who has something to say about everything. Whether it's changing oil, baking a sweet potato pie, building a house, style and fashion, open heart surgery, heliophysics, they have something to say about everything. They're going to have an opinion, as some of the young folks say, about everything. All right. And we want to make sure that we are not that kind of person. As a young folk would say, I don't want to be that person. And of course, it is important to have opinions. But if you're one of those people who think that you know everything, your opinion is probably, and this is going to help some of us, your opinion is probably driving other people away, and fast. And maybe they're just not saying anything because nobody likes to know it all. And I get it, that part of being a social person, part of being a social butterfly, part of being a social creature is being able to strike a balance, making sure that you recognize when to not say anything, no matter what your mind is telling you. A part of being a real social creature is being able to strike that balance of knowing, when do I speak? When do I not speak? Is it important to always have something to say? Or are there moments when I just don't need to say anything, even if my mind is telling me to talk? Because sometimes, even if people are just, if they think they're just expressing themselves or just sharing their wonderful depth and breadth of knowledge in an effort to help somebody out, sometimes those opinions get on people's nerves and they are rarely taken seriously. Even when you have something worthwhile to share, sometimes those opinions are not necessarily taken seriously. It's kind of like the little kid who cried wolf. You can talk so much until people don't believe you or they get tired of hearing you. And when you finally have something to say worthwhile, no one believes you. Isn't that horrible? No one believes you, or no one wants to hear you. Let's see what you all are saying. Any color, I've learned to hold my opinions empty. I hold my opinions unless asked. Marion, mostly if asked, depends on atmospheric setting as well. Yes, I agree. Tracy, it also depends on the seriousness of the issue. Absolutely. So let's talk about it. Let's see, sometimes when I'm asked, some do not like what I'm saying. I then be quiet. For example, I tell people I stay healthy by not eating processed food or sugar. Now, yeah, I understand a lot of times people, yeah, so it's a balance of what do I say? How do I say it? What do I think is the value of what I have to say? So then, Yvonne, it's good to see you. Yes, you're right on time. So let's talk about this, y'all. How can you tell if you are overly opinionated? How can you tell if you're overly opinionated? Because a lot of us, and I recognize this, you all, a lot of what we have to say comes from a good place and it comes from a good space in our hearts. But we have to learn to read the temperature in the room and see what their nonverbal communication is saying to us. How are they responding? So let's talk about it. Here are some signs. If you want to make sure that you are not overly opinionated, or if you're being overly opinionated, here's some signs. You talk more than everybody else. If you talk more than everybody else, you got to watch it. And we don't always stop to listen to how much we're saying. A lot of times we listen to what we're saying, we don't listen to how much we are saying. And being a leader, I talked about it earlier, being a leader or a social butterfly or even a charismatic person is one thing. I know lots of charismatic people. And sometimes you're going to have to hold the floor. It just comes with who you are. It just comes with the territory. And sometimes it'll happen even if you're not trying. It is not your intention to not hog the conversation, but it's not your intention to hold the floor at the moment. But sometimes it's just tossed on you, and you're not even trying. So you just have to make sure if it's not one of those moments where you are expected to hold the floor because of your charisma. If it's not that, if you're always front and center and you never seem to run out of things to say, there's a chance that you're talking when you should be listening. I'm just putting it out there. This is just me sharing some of my opinion based on my experiences in life after reading some of the literature that's out there. But you have to be careful. If you're talking more than everybody else, and it's not because you're being charismatic and you're being tossed the floor to hold the floor, you have to see, am I talking more than everybody else? Am I always front and center? And do I never run out of things to say? Should I be listening instead of talking? So that's one thing. So check to see if you talk more than everybody else. That's not a good thing. That's not a good thing. And then here's another way to recognize if you're just being opinionated. If you can't wait to say what you have to say, you might be an opinionated person. If you can't wait to say what you have to say, even if it's not responsive to what was said, a lot of people will talk after someone talks, but they didn't respond. I need to say that again, because a lot of times people think that they're responding. Just because you're talking after someone else has said something, that does not mean you're responding. You're just saying what you want to say in order, but you're not responding. And if you're that type of person, you can't wait to say what you have to say, even if it's not responsive, you're probably opinionated. A surefire sign that you're overly opinionated is not waiting to actually hear what someone has to say before you jump in with what you're dying to say. That's not a conversation. You all tell me if you know people like that. A conversation is meant to be an exchange, not just what some in this one article that I read today. It's not just meant to be a one mouth firing squad. It's not meant to be a one mouth firing squad. At the end of the few sentences I asked, does that make sense, or do you have questions? I believe in seek first to understand. Yeah, it's a matter of getting feedback. I think that's a good conversation strategy to ask if you were clear, to ask them for your feedback in the moment. But for people who just can't wait to say what they have to say, can't wait to talk and not necessarily respond, that's probably being over opinionated. And again, if these don't fit you and you're just I want to offer something that helps us, but that also helps us to deal with people who are like this, because hopefully this is not us. It doesn't describe us, but if it describes somebody that we know, we're going to talk about how to handle it. But I want us to at least recognize it, because a lot of times we have conversations with people. We go in and out of conversations, and you leave exhausted, you leave tired, you leave frustrated, you leave with anxiety, because you realize that you had a conversation that was not necessarily the most edifying for you. So let's continue to talk about it. How do I recognize someone who's over opinionated? How do I recognize when I'm being over opinionated? Here's another thing. I call it, you walk and talk down a one-way street. And before I get to that, let's see, Tracy says some people cut off others to say what they want, so they are not listening. Absolutely. A lot of times we just interrupt, we cut people off. They're in the middle of a sentence and we just cut them off because they're talking for 2 minutes, and we responded to the first 10 seconds of what they had to say. And we never even heard the rest of what they had to say. And sometimes we form an opinion. We get upset, we get angry, we get mad because of what they said in the first 10 seconds, and we didn't realize what they said after 2 minutes. Because maybe, just maybe, in those 2 minutes, they were talking about how they grew from being this person to that person, but yet we responded to the first 10 seconds of conversation. That's when you're overly opinionated. Don't do that. Just don't do it. But let's talk about what happens when people, what I call you walk and talk down a one-way street. What does that mean, Cutler? It means you never change your mind about anything. You never change your mind about anything. You might be overly opinionated because, with the exception of politics and religion, most people are open to changing their minds once they get new information. Usually they are. But when it comes to politics and religion, people kind of funny, people kind of fickle, people just kind of stuck with where they are with that. And, we give people that. So most people are open to changing their minds, but for people who just walk and talk down a one-way street, they never change their minds about anything. If you never change your mind, even when even when you're faced with what I would call circumstantial evidence or circumstantial changes, or just something that would suggest to you that the way you're seeing things could be not the right way, because you already know the outcome. You already know what to believe, and you're just not going to change your mind. If you are the kind of person who walks and talks down a one-way street and you're not even open to the possibility of changing your mind, you might be overly opinionated. You might be overly opinionated. Ask yourselves honestly, out of all of the conversations I've had in the past week, how many times have I been open to the possibility of seeing something a different way? Versus how many times was I have to use this word, you all, how many times was I hell bent on seeing things my way? Some people cut off others to say what they want, so they're not listening. Yes, overtalkers only care about their opinions. I'm telling you all, it is true. It is absolutely true. And I want us to recognize it. And for those of you who have never been on this platform with me, those of you who have never watched this channel, I always open by saying that this channel, this platform is about inspiration. It is about motivation, but it is also about challenging us to be a better person. It is about challenging us to show up our best selves, even though in the worst of situations. So tonight, perhaps this is more of a challenge than it is about inspiration and motivation. I challenge us to show up better because I believe that better is in us. I challenge us to be greater people because I believe that greater is inside of us. I challenge us to be our best selves because we have not even seen the best that we can be. And it is only through conversations like this a lot of times that makes us stop and say, if better is inside of me, somebody just needs to push or pull or prod so I can get it out. Maybe better is in me when it comes to how I respond to people, how I talk to people, how I think about what people have to say, how I process myself in conversations. We have to step back and be objective about how we speak, how we be, how we show up, how we communicate. That's why I'm challenging us this evening. This is a challenge. I will listen to the person to see if there's any validity to what they're saying. Absolutely. So we have to listen. So let's talk about something else. So what else, Cutler? Do you have anything else to help us see if we are just being opinionated or if we are overly opinionated? Again, I toss this out within the context of saying we all have opinions. We all have things that we want to share and things that we want to offer. But what happens when it just teeters over the threshold of being a little too opinionated, just overly opinionated? Here's another helpful hint to help determine whether or not we are overly opinionated or whether we can recognize overly opinionated people. What happens, and I call this when you're closed-minded. When you're closed-minded and you jump to conclusions. You see the world how you see it, and there's no change in your mind. This is what I call when your mind is closed, but your mouth is open. Woo! When your mind is closed, but your mouth is open, when it probably should be the other way around. Your mouth should be closed, but your mind should be open. I hope I'm helping somebody this evening. This is for when you are closed-minded, you're not interested in hearing any new information because you're not open to the possibility of anything other than what you already know, what you already think, or what you already believe. I've said it before. When you're closed-minded, you can hear someone speak for 2 minutes, But usually you are ready to jump in after 30 seconds and you miss many of the points that the other person was trying to make. So guess what? You're overly opinionated. The type of person that would argue with the with the signpost. Right, right. Now, Tracy, that's funny. There are some overly opinionated people. Now that is funny. Cutler, how else might we recognize when we are overly opinionated? How else might we recognize when we are dealing with people who are overly opinionated, in addition to people who talk more than everybody else, or people who just can't wait to say what they have to say, even if it's not necessarily responsive? Or how about when people who walk and talk down a one-way street, meaning that they never change their mind, or when people are closed-minded, meaning they jump to conclusions? How else might we recognize when we are being overly opinionated? Because a lot of times, y'all, this is helping us. It's helping us, and it reminds me in conversations, Cutler, don't be so forceful with your opinions, and I'll talk about that in just a moment. Don't be so forceful with your opinions, even in the moments when you're asked and you decide that you will share. Don't be so forceful. How else can we recognize when we are overly opinionated, or when we're around overly opinionated people? Because you know too much about too much. Being knowledgeable, having lots of interests, being well-rounded and being well-versed is one thing. Having information on every topic that ever arises under the sun is another whole matter, or some folk would say another whole matter. There is no way that one person can have an actual informed point of view regarding every subject that they encounter. Absolutely no way. Marion, you're right. They never shut down the mouth. People who consider their opinion valid without having done any research whatsoever, you haven't done any research, but you have the most valid opinion in the room. You're going by what you feel, what you've heard, what you think, what you believe, but have you done any research? Have you honestly done any recent, relevant research? You're talking about things that you learned 20 years ago when there has been so much progress made in that area, so many changes in that area, and you're still talking about what you learned 20 years ago. You know too much about too much. And here is just my experience. Can I just share my experience, you all? My experience with overly opinionated people, and this is probably why I sometimes am just withdrawn in a room, as confident as I am, I make the decision not to say much. I'm pretty confident whenever I speak. I'm pretty confident in the truth, in the legitimacy of what I have to say. But many times I choose to withhold my opinion. I choose to withhold what I could otherwise offer. And I'll tell you why. This is just me being transparent. Because overly opinionated people sometimes can be very forceful and they can be rude. They offer their way as the only way, as the best way, as the right way. Even if they don't say it, they're sometimes just dismissive of other people's opinions. They can be abrasive and offensive, but let's talk about how to handle them. What can you do to help those that just don't want to be helped because whatever they say is right? Auntie Carolyn, let's talk about that. Let's absolutely talk about that. So there, like I was just saying, there are people who are just so overly opinionated. And they don't care that they are forceful and rude. They don't care that they are abrasive and offensive. They don't care that they are dismissive of what you have to say. And they will always think that their way is the best way, the right way, and the only way. So help me God, and that's it. Amen. But But let's talk about it. And that's why I call this conversation tonight How to Handle Opinionated People, Part 1, because I want to put the feelers out there to help us at least recognize when we're dealing with opinionated people. I wanted to put the feelers out there when we can recognize that we're being that person. Because the only way we are going to be better is when we recognize that a part of that sometimes resides within us. And I want us to be courageous enough. Here's what I offer. Sometimes y'all know I don't recognize the offering that I'm giving to us until I get there. I want us to be courageous enough. And this is my offering. I offer us the courage to examine some of the things that are in us that need to be pulled out. I offer us the courage to recognize that sometimes it is within us and we need to pull it out. So I offer us the courage to look honestly within ourselves and say, you know what? That's a part of me, and I need to deal with it. I need to handle it because perhaps I've been forceful, perhaps I've been rude, perhaps I've been offensive, perhaps I've been abrasive, but I want to be better. I want to be able, as Cutler says, to show up as my best self, even in the worst of situations. So let's talk about it. How do we handle opinionated people? Auntie Carolyn, you ask. So this will be a part 2 conversation, but I want to talk about part of it. One of the ways that you can handle overly opinionated people, those who just don't want to be helped because whatever they say is right. Here's one of the things that you can do. If you are going to confront them, make sure you confront them respectfully. But even before confronting them respectfully, you have to ask yourself, you have to figure out if you need to confront this behavior at all. Because we will all interact with opinionated people. It is unavoidable. So here's what I say, Auntie Carolyn, you have to pick your battles. And you have to be very wise and pick. Thank you, Yvonne. You said, I accept the challenge. I want to be better. So do I, my friend. And I thank you. I love you so much. And I appreciate you for saying that, because I want to offer us something that would truly make us better. I want to challenge us. But answering your question, Auntie Carolyn, it is a matter of saying to yourself, is this a battle worth fighting in the moment? Pick your battles wisely. To make sure that you're just not engaging in verbal warfare just for the sake of engaging in verbal warfare. Even when people, when they cross your path, you have to ask yourself, is it worth, as some folk will say, dying on this mountain, dying on this hill? So for some of us, that's not the hill that we want to die on. That's not the mountain where we want to collapse. Because not every annoying comment needs to be dealt with. So it may not necessarily be in our best interest to try and confront a person all the time. You have to ask yourself, is this an opinion worth spending your time disputing? Because one of the most valuable things that we have is time. And when you waste it or when you give it away, you can't get it back. Some opinions are annoying as the devil, but it is pointless for us to argue. I think I put it in one of my books. I can't remember. My mom will probably tell me which one. I can't remember, but a part of my mantra is just don't argue with the fool, because somebody passing by just might not be able to tell the difference between you and the fool. Because guess what? When you're arguing with the fool, you both look alike. Maybe that's what I should coin. When you're arguing with the fool, you both look alike. And sometimes it's pointless to argue. It doesn't make no sense. It doesn't make any sense. It is a waste of your time. It is a waste of your energy. It is a waste of your effort. Some things you just don't have to argue. People get into arguments. Well, oh, which one was better? Was it science? What are the movies? Was Star Wars better or was Star Trek better? Who cares? Those are both franchises that have made lots of money. You don't have to argue over stuff like that. You have to ask yourself, is there a chance of me winning this battle? Is it a battle that where somebody's going to come out as a winner, somebody's going to come out a loser? Fighting the good battle or fighting a good fight, you just have to ask yourself. There are places and situations and times, I have to say this, I have to put this out there, and we'll pick up with this conversation, but there are times when your actions are not going to change anyone's mind. And you will be impacted worse because what you realize is that you're offering something, hoping to change the temperature in the room, hoping to change a person's position, hoping to offer them the possibility of perhaps seeing something different, but it is rejected. And then what happens to us when that's you? You leave frustrated. You leave with anxiety because now you thought you could offer something that would cause them to see something different. But listen, you have to say sometimes it's just pointless. Sometimes you have to ask yourself, is their opinion in this moment hurting anybody? Now, sometimes it's just right to call out people for some things. When people are being racist or when they're being sexist or when they're being a bully or when they're being just harmful, yeah, you need to call them out. But sometimes when it's just a matter of them having a different opinion and what they say is always right, you chalk it up and you said, you know what? You say, it's not worth my energy. It's not worth my effort, and it's not worth my time. I'm not going to be frustrated. I'm just going to, you all know it's in me. I'm just going to shake the dust off my feet and just keep right on moving. Marion, that cousin, that is such a good way of thinking. Sometimes overly opinionated people are in a lonely place because people tend to detach from them. That's a great way of thinking. We have to find out, and we have to remember, and I'll talk about that in some of the next time we're here in this space, in this place. How do we handle them? Because who knows what has made them like that? And let's be careful. Let's be careful not to reject the person. You can reject a personality. You can reject a way of being. You can reject a style. But let's be careful not to reject people. Okay? Let's be careful how we handle people. But let's be honest also in how we handle ourselves. Don't put yourself in a position where you're going to cause yourself anxiety and grief. Just don't do it. I just wanted to offer this as a point of discussion tonight because I thought about my journey. I think about the times some people say, you don't have anything to say? Why are you silent? I've learned the art. I hope I've learned, I certainly am continuing to learn the art of it's okay to be silent. It's okay not to say everything that's on your mind. It's okay not to say everything that you're thinking. Everybody doesn't always want to hear everything that you have to say. I'm continuing to learn that. And that is why I wanted to put it out as one of the topics for our Let's Talk the Color discussion. Because as I continue to learn, as I continue to navigate through this, I hope that it is helping somebody else to navigate through the same thing. I want to say thank you all so much for spending this time with me. It is always encouraging. It's always uplifting. I hope I'm offering us something that we can take as a nugget and say, that's something I'm going to use to examine myself, or that's something I'm going to use to help me when I'm in that kind of situation. That is why I spend these 1800 seconds every Tuesday and Thursday. And we've been doing this now for going on 3 years. Thank you all for being with me. Tell somebody else, meanwhile, tell them to come on, Let's Talk the Color. Tell them that we're here every Tuesday and Thursday for 1800 seconds. So you all do me a favor. Let's keep building community. Let's maintain connectivity. Let's keep our heads up. Let's keep our hopes up. Let's stay safe and let's stay sane. And please know this, that from my heart to yours, there is and always will be so much love. I hope you all are getting excited about the holidays as I am. And I will see you all next time. Take care. Good night, everybody.